What's going on, everyone? How's it going? This week's video, I wanted to kind of talk through the process of what it was like to get both my half sleeves done while I was stationed overseas in Germany and then Hawaii. If you were able to watch last week's video, I kind of gave a short background of me finding Untitled or Mark of the Four Waves tribe, what steps I needed to take to start the process, start the journey, and why I felt the need to do this, what was it that was drawing me to kind of take on, not this responsibility, but take on the markings of my ancestors. And speaking with my parents, and at the time not knowing that I was adopted, but still having this huge pull to want to represent my family's heritage and the culture that I was raised in. And also in last week's video, if you had a chance to watch it, you'll understand and know that my parents didn't tell me that I was adopted until I was 27. And at that time, it was just my mom who was alive. My dad had passed a few years prior to me asking. And I bring that up because my parents were just very, very, very quiet, or the household was really quiet. There wasn't a lot of dialogue between family members, and especially not regarding family history and background. So let's talk about the process in more detail. The first step to getting your tribal markings with Untitled is to answer a questionnaire. The questionnaire, I can't remember off the top of my head, so I'm going to read some of the questions here. But if you are seriously interested in going down this path and starting your journey, go ahead and find it on our website. I'm going to put the link below in the caption so you can get to the questionnaire directly. But some of the questions I'll read off here. When is your birthday? What is your zodiac sign? What are your parents' birthdays and zodiac signs? Do you have any siblings, their birthday and zodiac sign? What area of the Philippines is your family from? What city? What dialect do you speak at home? If you don't speak any dialect, what do your parents speak? What did your great-great-grandparents do for a living? Fishermen, farmers, shamans, etc. Where are your great-great-grandparents originally from? And a plethora of other questions on that questionnaire. So, bringing it back to my parents and my upbringing and them being very quiet, I think the reason why they were so quiet, at least in regard to, family history and background, is because I don't think they wanted me to be curious about where I was from. They were able to hide and mask that I was adopted for so long. I don't know how they would have felt if I tried to have that conversation when I was growing up. And growing up in Bahrain, especially, I now know that we grew up close-ish to my biological parents. At least my father still lived there when I was living there, or when we were living there, excuse me. So I think they didn't want to risk me either being upset at them and retaliating and saying, I want to be with my real parents, or, whatever. But I don't think I would have. And especially now, after coming to the United States and seeing the huge difference my life would have been like, or has been since leaving Bahrain with them. I think they did it the right way. And however they were able to convince the rest of my family, my aunts, my uncles, cousins. If you know anything about Filipino families, we have a shit ton of cousins and aunts, ates, kuyas, and my mom, who raised me, she had 10 siblings. All right, so 10 siblings on her end, and then my dad's side and all their babies. So it was a huge family. We grew up in a huge family, and nobody said a thing, not a single soul. So super impressed by that. I don't know if they all had like a meeting of the minds before and just agreed to never talk about it. But anyway, I'm grateful. So thank you for keeping the secret if a family member is watching this. All right, so not having a very open dialogue with my parents about family history and background, to then sitting them down and specifically asking them these questions off this questionnaire, it just made the process that much more meaningful for me, that much more personal for me, and made me ready, or prepared me to take on these markings of our family history. Once the questionnaire was filled out, I went ahead and emailed that to Elle. And at the time, like I said, I was stationed in Germany. This is back in 2005. He was in California, and I was probably an E3 or E4, so not making a lot of money. I didn't have the means to like fly to California to get tattooed every single time I wanted to get a tat. So I had to find someone in Germany that could take on his design. And what he did was freaking amazing. So I sent him photos of me from different angles, and he literally mocked up my tattoo on my arm in a photo. So digitally mocked up what it would look like before I even got it. So I approved, or we worked through the design that way. And I took that mock-up and brought it to a tattoo artist. And at the time, I didn't really have a lot of experience finding a tattoo artist, let alone in Germany. I don't sprechen Sie Deutsch, and I was just like, man, if you could just understand what I'm saying and not fuck this up, you have my business. Like, let's go. Not smart. But I went ahead with an artist in Germany, close to where I was stationed at Coleman Barracks, and we decided to just do the centerpiece on my right arm. And if you look at it, it's a shield. If you look at it, in the middle of the shield is the original 4 Waves logo. So way back when, this is what our marking for our tribe looked like. And I mention the name all the time, 4 Waves, mark of the 4 Waves. But I don't know if I've ever talked about what that really means. I mean, people have asked me, why do I throw up a 4? It all ties back to the 4 Waves. So I'm going to briefly give a history lesson of what those 4 waves are. So each wave represents a group of indigenous people that migrated to the Philippines and then settled there. And at the end of that, the long period of immigration or migration to the Philippines, we now have what you see as our Filipinos. So the first wave, the Aitas, they were the Black race that lived in isolated mountainous areas of the northern part of the Philippines in Luzon, before the Austronesian, which are now the Malays and the Asian groups. The second wave were a group of indigenous people to migrate to the Philippines, were the Proto-Malays. They were seafarers and farmers and a bit more technologically advanced than their surrounding groups. When they first arrived to the Philippines, they made sure to fight off the Negritos and had them flee the jungles and the surrounding areas. And after that happened, the Proto-Malays and the Aitas were able to kind of work it out where they both could live together harmoniously. And now that original indigenous group are what we recognize as today's Polynesians. The third wave of indigenous people to come to the Philippines were the Duerto Malay. They were crossed with Proto-Malay, so the previous group, natives, and Asiatic, my gosh, race, who were Indian, Chinese, Siamese, and Arabic. So, I mean, there are so many flavors and ethnicities and demographics that came to the Philippines, migrated to the Philippine Islands. And that's why I feel like when you go to the Philippines, or even now when you're in the United States, when people say that they're Filipino, they can look like a bunch of different other races because that's what we're comprised of. All right, the last and final wave were the Spaniards. So the fourth wave were the Spaniards who came to the Philippine Islands on a Spanish fleet. You guys probably know this, by Ferdinand Magellan back in 1521. They not only migrated, but conquered, dominated, raped, and pillaged our lands and settled there for over 300 years. And now, many of you might know or are familiar with Filipinos who have Hispanic names, first names, last names, and that is why. So, all of those groups now comprise what we see as the Filipino group, Filipino people. So, short history lesson, and if anyone knows me, I'm not the best at history, but I'm pretty sure everything that I said there was accurate. So, yeah, if you didn't know, look that up. I'll type in the groups in the caption as well, so you can do a little more digging and research on your own. But yeah, I find it super interesting that so many different tribes or groups of people came to the Philippines to try and find their home. All right, that being said, after I got this shield done in Germany, I went back to Elle and let him know, like, hey, you know, she's put this thing on a stencil and placed it on my arm, blah, blah, blah. And he, I mean, I can clearly remember this. I could hear the sigh of disappointment. And I was just like, what? What's wrong with what she did? What I learned is that when it comes to tattooing, at least, you know, in his eyes, or like now realizing what true tattoo artists are able to do, what he wanted me to find was an artist that could redraw the tattoo mock-up directly onto my skin. Someone that understood someone who understood anatomy, who could not just trace, but, you know, make sure that the circle goes or is as large as my shoulder, you know, really go with the flow of my muscle groups. If, I don't know, if I think my arms are smaller, but yeah, not just like copy and pasting the design, but really going with my own structure. So back to the drawing board I go, right? Like I already had a hard time finding an artist that could speak English well enough for me to tell them that this is what I wanted. Now I'm expanding my search to not only Germany, but all of Europe. Like, let me find a Polynesian tattoo artist in Europe back in 2005. Like, oh my God, are you serious? So instead of typing in, you know, tribal work or Polynesian or whatever, I broadened my search to black work and dot work and mandalas, and not black and gray, because I mean, we could talk about that in another video, but there are no, in true traditional tribal tattoos, there are no gray shades, because you can't do that gray shading with the stick, the traditional tapping method, right? It's either filled in or lined. So anyway, so finding a black work artist, I came across a phenomenal tattoo artist, and I'm so grateful that I found him. His name is Dan Damasha, owner of Calypso Tattoo in Liège, Belgium. And I'll put his contact info down below as well. I don't remember if I got Elle's approval or not to work with him, but either way, the remaining part of my half sleeve, I get so many compliments on this part. The line work is just so clean, straight. I mean, it may be on my skin a little bit deep or keloid, but I don't mind it, you know. But so he was able to finish the rest of my half sleeve, and then this centerpiece. And I don't know, the line, I mean, these tattoos are 15 years old, you know, and they're still clean. He is an amazing artist. So if you're in Europe, Dan and Masha, hit him up if you need some black work. And then the rest of it, once I left Germany, I still had this part of my shoulder to do and the below part, my tricep bicep area. Life kind of happened a little bit. I left the army for like 6 months, came back in as a signals intelligence analyst, went to AIT, got stationed at Schofield Barracks. And I bring that up because, as I said, life was happening in between there. I had my first kid. So Jasmine was born in that period of time. And as I reserved this side for my father, this side was for my mother. But I also wanted to incorporate my daughter into it. So I was able to work with Isaiah of Soul Signature Tattoo in Hawaii. I'll put his contact stuff in the caption below as well. And this turtle right here is specifically for her. So I know that was a long video, but in the next video, I will go through, you know, yes, the majority of my tattoo motifs and patterns are about my family, my lineage, where they're from in the Philippines, but now putting my own spin, now that I've represented my mom and dad, I have created tattoos based off of events, like having a baby. And so these tattoos on my chest, my upper back, I have more around my hips, are super special to me because it is me either requesting more energy from Mana, guidance, strength, and they're incorporated into the tattoos, and we'll talk about how that happens, or, you know, what that's like in my next video. All right, I hope this was informative. I hope this was helpful, and anyone who may be interested in not only Filipino tattoos, but maybe finding their own pattern or design that they want influenced by Filipino tattoos. Like I said, it is possible if you do it the respectful way and not just steal someone's tattoos, but have the artist specifically make you something unique to you. Yeah, and the links, like I said, I'll put them all below in the caption. And if you found this helpful, or you think it may be helpful to someone else you may know, please like this, share it, spread the word, spread the message. Thanks all.